Okay, I have all the length I want, so now I want to finish off my ends. So I'm going to work the first 2 stitches. And I'm going to take the second stitch I knit and place it on my first finger. And then lift the first loop over the second. And then the second loop goes back on the proper finger. And tighten it all up. And then work the next stitch. And take the stitch you just worked. Place it on the finger before. And lift the first loop over the second. And return the loop to the proper finger. Then work my last stitch. And take that stitch and place it on the previous finger. And first loop over the second. And then pull. You can pull it tight. And you'll see I've got a nice cast off edge. Now I'm going to take the end and feed it through my loop. And I want all the length for sewing, so I'm just going to take my remainder yarn and pull it through my loop and pull it tight. And there I have my finished edge. I am then going to take my beginning edge and I'll sew the 2 together using either one of my tails. If I wasn't going to do something with the rest of my yarn, use the yarn to sew the whole cowl, which is what I'm making, together, I would cut it with about 5 or 6 inches and use that to sew my ends together or just weave in the ends. Either way. And I'll just use a quick whip stitch because it won't be very noticeable in this type of a pattern. Before I sew my ends together, I want to make sure I haven't twisted my knitted piece. So I'm just going to run it through my fingers, untwisting it as I go along. And I've got a lot here, probably several feet worth, because I'm going to wrap it together doing multiple layers to create a cowl. There's my end. And this is my beginning, and this is my end. And I've threaded a yarn needle with my end. I'm going to pull on that to shorten that so I don't have quite so long of a tail. And then I'm just going to go through the edges of both and just whip stitch it together. On some pieces I might do a different type of stitch, but because of the looseness of this, it's not really going to show what type of stitch I use. I'm just going to do a second one in the corner here just to make sure it's secure. Make sure my yarn's on the correct edge. And then I'm just going to start making loops about the diameter that I want. And I'll just run my needle through the edges, whip stitching the edges together. And sometimes if your yarn bundles up, it feels like it's stuck, but you just need to untwist your yarn. Let's see, I tied a knot in my yarn with my tails. And a couple of stitches in the edges. And then I'm just going to weave through my stitches to get to my other edge. And I don't want to pull it very tight, and do a quick stitch to secure my yarn there so it doesn't pull across the width of my loop. So I've continued sewing my edges together, and for my cowl I made 5 loops, and now I want to finish off. So I'm just going to run through my whip stitches and put my yarn underneath my needle and pull through, and that creates a knot to secure the end. You want to pull it super tight, and then I'm just going to kind of weave back and forth along the edge a little bit. Sorry, got too close there. Weave back and forth along the edge a little bit. And then go under another stitch and come back and go through my knot, maybe to the other side. I'm actually splitting my yarn because that helps secure the end. And I'm going to just pull it tight and cut the yarn flush. And that's the first side of my cowl. I'm going to stretch it out and repeat on the other side, sewing the edges, and I'll have a multi-layered cowl. And that's how you finger knit.